I don't know what the rest of the people that you're interviewing for this, did, or the circumstances behind their crime, and whether or not you'll get a complete and accurate answer out of them for that, I don't know. But a lot of the people that go out and actively seek someone to kill, I think in their own mind they've already justified what they're going to do before they do it. They feel that they have reason to do it to protect themselves, or to protect maybe some values that they hold, or moral judgment, morals that they have for themselves. They want to protect that, not have it influenced by this group. And in their own mind, they say, "Yeah, I'm justified in doing what I'm doing." Like I said, I can't speak for everybody. I don't know every man's circumstances. I don't know why they do what they do.
All right. My name is Kenneth French. Most people just call me French. It's started when I was in school and carried over in the military. But I'm currently living at Pender Correctional Institution in North Carolina, Bergall, North Carolina. It's a medium custody facility. I'm serving multiple life sentences plus numbers. Yeah, a good amount of time, a very, very, very long amount of time.
Yeah, and in that case, so we know where you live now, so I guess we should go back to your early life. So what year were you born in, and what town did you grow up in?
I was born on January 15th, 1971, Capricorn, and I pretty much fit that to the T. Um, I was raised in a little bitty town called Brunson, Michigan. It's in the southern part of the Lower Peninsula, right, maybe 10 miles from Indiana state line. Farmland. Very, very small town, 2,000 people, one stoplight, a couple grocery stores, a couple gas stations, 7 bars, a lot of alcoholics, a lot of Polish people, a lot of Polish and German in the area. But just a very small town. I loved it. I miss it. In our immediate household, grew up with my older half sister and my younger brother. Uh, I also have uh, two older half brothers from my dad's first marriage. And then she passed away, but I had a half sister from my dad's first marriage. Uh, a lot of very good people. My household growing up was very rough. My dad was a very strict and mean. He was not an alcoholic. He didn't drink, but he carried that mentality of an alcoholic, the meanness, the anger, the lashing out, unstable.
Was there like verbal abuse and any physical abuse or anything like that?
Very much so. Myself, I got the physical and verbal abuse. He molested my sister, which would have been his stepdaughter. When the time she was like 12 or 13 years old. Mom and dad both believed in corporal punishment. They dealt that out pretty freely. Uh, Dad he was very abusive towards me. I don't think he liked me. I think he kind of resented me because when my mom got pregnant, he felt like he was stuck with her, and so I became his whipping post, I guess.
Mm. And is your dad still around? Like, have you get
Yeah.
contact with him?
He killed himself. My sister reported him for the sexual abuse, and when he found that out, he went out in the woods and shot himself. This was many years ago, 89, 90, yeah, somewhere in that area, 90, I think, 1990.
Would you say that like really stuck with you for a lot of your life and stuff like that when that happened?
Yeah, and When you look at the relationship that my dad and I had, which was more of employee-employer, he had a salvage yard and I was like free labor from the time I was old enough to pick up a wrench. But it actually bothered me when I seen the box that had he was cremated, and I seen the box that that the ashes were in, and I was like, get him out of that box. It bothered me more than I thought it would. I mean, he's still my dad, even with all of his faults. I learned, I learned many things from him, some good, many bad. Uh, but he's, he was still my dad, and what I knew of as a father figure, as messed up as that was, and I knew it was wrong. Grew up thinking that all households acted like this, but after I got a little bit older and started spending time with other friends, I realized, you know what? I don't think everybody else's house is like this. Not
Definitely
everybody's
not.
dad beats them
Yeah.
with their fists and kicks them with steel-toed boots and so on, so on. So I uh, I started making decisions at a young age that I was not going to be like my dad. Was not going to treat I had a wife or children. I was not going to physically or verbally, mentally, and I wasn't going to abuse them at all. I would, knowing the difference that there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to do my best to do it the right way. So,
Yeah, and so I guess we should go into so did all this happen while you were living in Michigan? Or
I graduated high school May 28th of 1989.
oh, and which
I'm
high school did you go to?
It's Bronson Junior Senior High in Bronson, Michigan. It's just one school. I think my graduating class was like 97 or 98 people. Really small. Yeah. uh, I left for basic training 3 days later. I joined the Army, and June 1st, I signed in at Fort Jackson, South Carolina for my basic training. When my dad killed himself, I was actually stationed over in Korea. Killed himself, I was in Korea. I spent a couple years over there. I love the military. I love serving my country. I love this country. Yes, it needs some adjustments. It needs some fixing, but it is, it's a pretty awesome country. We've got a very good system of living, and the advantages that we have that many people in many countries don't have. I'm proud of this country. I was proud of my service. And even if it was not something I was enjoying at the moment, standing guard duty, 3 o'clock in the morning, 20 below zero. Yeah, yeah, obviously I didn't enjoy that aspect, but I was still enjoyed being in the military and being serving my country.
It gave you like a purpose,
Yeah,
in general, a
absolutely.
purpose. So would you say like before the military, I'm also curious about this. What did you ever act out a lot as a child in school or anything like that? Like, or like, was there anything like acting out like disciplinary while you're in the military? Out of curiosity.
No, I only ever had a couple of fights when I was in school, and that was like junior high, high school. I didn't. I was actually. I hate to pat myself on the back, but I was actually a pretty good kid. I didn't get into much trouble in school. I didn't apply myself maybe as much as I should have. No, absolutely, I didn't apply myself as much as I should have. But
A
I
lot do.
liked school. Yeah, I liked school. I had some very fortunate to have some very good teachers. I owe those people a large debt of gratitude. Uh, they they did the best they could with a dummy like me, and so I I think that school for me was an escape from home, if that makes sense. I I was not, I enjoyed going to school because I wasn't around my dad. I didn't have to be around my dad if I was at school. I could act like a child. I could act like a teenager. I could be a child. And whereas at home, I had to be this worker out in this employee out in our salvage yard. And, I didn't, Dad wouldn't allow us to go out for sports. I did go out for track a couple times. Went out for football one time, played football one time, one year. But other than that, no, the practice and games take too much time away from working out there in the junkyard. So that was not. And my weekends were spent working. Most of my summer vacations were spent working. Nights after school. Yeah, I don't bring homework home. Yeah, homework was to be done at school. You brought homework home. My dad felt like I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing in class. Schoolwork was for school. Don't bring it home. And when you get home, it's time to work. We don't have time for homework at home.
I understand that. Yeah, it's a very dysfunctional childhood. Okay, so I would
Yes.
say, I guess we go into this then. So you were stationed in Korea, and I guess, how did you come from Korea to Fort Bragg in North Carolina? I'm curious about kind of like your process of that, because I
Okay.
know that you wanted to be in the Air Force,
Airborne?
like, yeah, where
Yep,
you wanted
airborne,
to,
yes.
yeah, something
Jump
like
out of the
that.
planes. Yes, that was actually in my enlistment contract. I had airborne school, jump school, put in my enlistment contract. I very much wanted to do that. I thought it would be fun, and it was a blast. I loved it. Um, it's best that adrenaline high is just incredible, and it's a natural high. And people that skydive and mountain climb and things of that nature. Yes, I get it because that adrenaline rush is just incredible. It's awesome. Um, so I completed basic training and then my advanced individual training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Then I went to Fort Benning, Georgia for jump school. Um, I was sent to say my first duty station was Korea, and really wasn't where I wanted to go. I didn't think that Korea had anything that I'd be interested in. Um, Little did I know. Uh, so I go to Korea, spent a couple years there, and if I wasn't an alcoholic before I got to Korea, I was by the time that I left. There was no drinking age. I was 19 years old. There were bars around the military bases, and yeah, they loved that American money. So they got the majority of mine. Um, I had orders to go to Fort Hood, Texas, when I was coming up to leave Korea and come back to the States. Well, I didn't want to go to Texas. What do I want to do? Go to Texas for? There was nothing there that I was really interested in. So I wrote to branch management in Washington, D.C., and asked them to change my orders to either Fort Bragg so I could get in an airborne unit and continue to jump, or Fort Gamble, Kentucky, so I could go to aerosol school, learn to repel out of helicopters. So I got very lucky, and my orders were changed to Fort Bragg. Um, I reported there January 17th, 92. Yeah, 1992. Station. I was assigned to a field artillery unit, 155 millimeter cannons, big guns. I was a mechanic. I was a heavy wheel vehicle mechanic. That's what the advanced individual training was. I was the distinguished honor graduate for our class for heavy wheel vehicle mechanics. I'd already been to vocational school while I was in high school learning diesel mechanics. I had I was certified, SAE certified in 6 areas of mechanics before I even graduated high school or went in the military. I was pretty good at what I did.
Was your personal life pretty good too? And would you say like personal wise, like I could see like you had a good time in the military, but what would you do when you were away from the military?
Uh, Drink.
Mm.
I was, and am an alcoholic. Um, on the majority of my free time, even in high school, was spent when I could get away from the house or my parents were gone here or there, drinking. Um, Military, when I was off duty, I was drinking. I did do a bit of kind of exploring around the local areas. Say this, all right, in Korea, for instance, I would go out drinking on a Friday or Saturday night. Basically, come in to get to the barracks at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would get up at 7 or 8 o'clock, and throw my shoes on and a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. I would just take off running and leave the base and go out in the countryside and just take off jogging. And I might do a 10-mile loop. Uh, but it was just random roads that I would choose to go down and just to see what I could see, and experience. Met some really cool people out in the countryside in Korea. Had some had some really good experiences. I had a lot of fun over there. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. And another, yes, this is something that's probably a lot of people are not going to agree with, but they had uh, prostitutes, and almost every bar had at least one or two women working in there for so selling drinks and selling themselves. And I took complete advantage of that. Again, I was 19 years old, and these are beautiful girls. And, yeah, so I didn't miss many opportunities to have fun. Um,
Yeah. So how would your comrades? Because I know that yeah, your character is a lot different than the news would say, and stuff like that. So I guess I'm just curious of like uh, that kind of a thing, like your character, like so like for example, like have you ever had like any violent tendencies before August 6th at all?
I want to say no, just because, of course, we all want to be seen the best life possible. But I did occasionally, get angry or act out a little bit. Nothing, extreme. I didn't, you know, I never put anybody in the hospital or anything like that. I I didn't go out looking for trouble, but if I was in a bar and a fight broke out, then I would just, most of us, not only myself, but most of us just looked at it as a form of entertainment. We would just participate just because we thought it was fun. That's how was that sounds. But I didn't, no, I didn't have a lot of violent tendencies. Um, of course, I trained in the military for combat. I never saw any actual combat, but the training that I had prepared me for it. And again, I was proud of my service and I loved it. I enjoyed the training. I enjoyed learning to do what my country might call upon me to do. And actually look forward to the opportunity to serve my country in that way. When I was in Korea, when Desert Shield, Desert Storm took place, and I requested to be transferred to Kuwait, and they wouldn't allow us. They had to keep troop strength up over in Korea, so they didn't allow us to leave. We had to stay there, and many of us had to stay anywhere from 3 to 6 months extra on top of what should have been a 1 year tour of duty. But character-wise, a lot of my friends in the Army would jokingly refer to me as Sergeant Major French because they knew that I was going to be a lifer. They knew that I was going. They could tell that I was probably going to stay in the military until I retired out sometime at some point. Um, I had aspirations of becoming a command sergeant major. Maybe not command sergeant major of the Army, but I wanted to gain as much rank as I could in enlisted ranks, and wanted to, that's cliche and sappy, but I wanted to be all I could be. And I really, I, I set goals for myself, and I was meeting and exceeding those goals. So, and all in all, I had a pretty good character. I received numerous awards in the military for conduct and for job performance. I, I made my sergeant stripes, my E5, in 3.5 years, and that was pretty fast. At Fort Bragg, I was the youngest E5 in our battalion, which is made up of smaller units, but I again, I volunteered for every course that they say don't volunteer in the military. Nah, screw that. I volunteered for every class or activity that came around because I just wanted the experience. I wanted to do different things. I enjoyed learning different things. I enjoyed meeting different people. Still to this day, I love meeting people, and it's just part of that path that I walk in.
How would you, so I think it would be I forgot to ask you this. How old were you when you went to Fort Bragg?
When I got to Bragg, I was 20 when I first got there. A couple weeks after I was there, I turned 21.
So like, yeah, you
Yeah,
said like
yeah, right there.
1991. Yeah,
Right.
1991.
I turned 21 shortly after getting there, right there at the same time I got to Fort Bragg. Um, yeah, so, and I was in an airborne unit. I was fortunate enough to get assigned to an airborne unit there because there are some units that are not airborne at Fort Bragg. Uh, I jumped every opportunity I could. Uh, we were only required to jump once every 3 months. They want you to jump at least once a month. I would, in a year and a half, well, say 1 year and 8 months there at Fort Bragg, and I got 35 jumps in, 36 jumps in. Um, so I was, I was making sure that I got my share and then some. Uh, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I wanted to go to jump master school. And part of becoming a jump master is having a set amount of jumps under your belt before you can get awarded the star or the star with the Oakley cluster around it. Uh, I
Oh, go ahead.
no, sure, go ahead.
Oh, and so uh, I guess it would be a good idea to ask. So in 1993, how was your life situated at this point? Like, were you living alone? Were you were you still like living on Fort Bragg, or I guess it'd be like the summer of 1993 prior to August 6th.
Right, okay. I had a room. I still had a room in the barracks. I had a single room. I was a sergeant, so that's one of the perks is you have a single room. But I met this lady that ended up becoming my fiance, and I was living with her and her two children. God, these kids were great. She had a 6-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy, and I think I fell in love with those kids before I fell in love with her. But they were just great kids, and she was a very good person herself. So I was living off post in the Hope Mills area around Bragg when that summer of '93. There, I didn't stay at the barracks much after I met her. Spent pretty much every minute that I wasn't at work at Fort Bragg with her, her children. I really loved that. I was, I was trying to be the father that my dad wasn't to me. And I can, again, not trying to pat myself on the back, but I was doing a pretty good job of it. Um, I didn't lose my temper with those kids. I didn't, you know, to me, the only, if anything, a swat on the rear end just to catch a child's attention, that's more than sufficient. That's usually not even called for. Most of the time, if the child respects, I've learned that if a child respects you and looks up to you, then just the tone of your voice is enough to let them know that, hey, I might need to make a change, so I might be messing up here. And they oftentimes seek our approval. So
I mean, a
I
child's mind
knew,
is like a clear sheet of glass, and just the smallest thing could,
yeah,
like, hammer could ruin it. So I understand about the tone
yeah.
thing for sure.
I think that's where sometimes we fail ourselves in the society today, is that we don't treat our children like they should be treated. Like it's almost it should be a required, not required, a set form that we use to treat our children. But our children are being raised by the media or say video games and whatever they find on their cell phones. We've lost the ability or the desire to raise our children. We're more comfortable. To me, it's what it looks like to me. I mean, I'm not an expert, but it looks like we're more comfortable in allowing others to raise our children for us. And I feel like that's a mistake. I think we should be doing more to correct that. Yeah, anyhow.
Yeah, I know what you mean in that case. So, I just the reason why I ask those questions is because it just gives people like an idea of like what's going on, just not instead of just like, okay, this happened and this happened. It just adds more. So yeah,
Mm.
okay then. And so I see that we have 4 more minutes. So I think like a good, or is it from 7:30 to 8? Or for me it's 7:30.
Yes, 7:30 to 8 your time.
Oh,
Yeah, 10,
okay. Dang,
10.
it goes
Yeah,
fast. I'm having a good time right now. It's really
it
good stuff.
does go quick. These video visits and the 15-minute phone calls and whatnot, they go so fast. Just you're like, wait, where'd the time go? Um,
Exactly. I mean, good time, but I guess this would be a good way to end it, I guess. Like, how would you define like alcoholism, and how would you like say like would you say it basically ruined your life in a way?
it, I ruined my life by allowing alcohol to become a center of my life. Um, Alcoholism is a very real problem. It's a very real disease. There's AA and 12 steps were a godsend to me. Okay, I've been blessed and fortunate to have attended many AA groups that has some very good people that really helped me to change internally, change my thinking. Um, I think alcoholism is not only a physical dependency, something we crave, but more mental. We, okay, let me say that. I want to escape in that bottle. I want to get drunk, and then when I do, then voila, I no longer have any concerns or responsibilities, or they don't matter as much to me. Uh, obviously alcoholism or alcohol lowers our inhibitions, and so we become more open, outspoken. Fortunately, I became really outspoken the night that I committed my crime. Uh, but I don't. I didn't know I was an alcoholic until after a number of years in prison. I didn't realize that, hey, I do have an alcohol problem. I am an alcoholic. When I was in the military, I was a functional alcoholic. I could work all day and do a very good job, and still drink all night. At one point, I got to where I kept a couple bottles of Orange Jubilee, Mad Dog Orange Jubilee in my refrigerator in the barracks, and I would drink a pint at lunchtime and eat orange flavored cough drops to cover up the alcohol smell, just so I'd have a little buzz to carry me over until I got off work. And I didn't see a problem with that. I didn't think, well, obviously I knew that it wasn't something I should be doing, otherwise I wouldn't have been eating the cough drops. But I didn't think I had a quote unquote problem. Uh, my work performance, there was a couple times where it started becoming an issue. Um, right about the time that I committed my crime, there were some red flags. Um, I just didn't see it at the time. I thought I had a handle on it. I thought I had control, and I didn't. I, I didn't have. I didn't have my shit together. In the military, we call it being squared away, meaning that everything is in its place and it's where it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to look. And if my life had been quote unquote squared away, then I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be sitting in prison today. I don't know where I would be. I don't know if I'd be alive. But I
Was one of your triggers to drink just, were you just anxious? Like a very anxious person in a way? Or did it just like help you out with just kind of like your emotions too?
emotions, there were issues from my childhood that I definitely hadn't dealt with. I used alcohol to blind myself from that. I would get drunk so I wouldn't have to, or I didn't think that I had to deal with it when I was drunk. A lot of times I did. I would get emotional just thinking about the abuse that I suffered or the abuse of my sister, my little brother, my mom. The level of violence in my childhood home was pretty high. And I used alcohol to escape that. And it didn't work. It was always still there. And obviously, because I'm here in prison, it didn't work well at all as an option for dealing with life's issues. Drinking, doing drugs, drinking, these things do not solve our problems. I learned that I had to take a step back and look at myself and go into self to make changes that were positive and constructive and not only benefit myself, but the people that I love and care about, hell, just the people that I meet in general. I had to make these changes. Otherwise, I would just be stuck in that rut. But the officer is calling for us to leave, so I have to end the video visit here. I'd met a woman that I ended up proposing to, and I was living with her and her two kids, and I was again doing really well in the military. The thing was I was an alcoholic and didn't realize that I was a functional alcoholic, and but yeah, I was meeting and exceeding every goal that I set for myself, and her and I got along really well. And the kids, I think I fell in love with them before I did her. They were great kids, just a 6-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy, and God, it was the best part of my day coming home and them running out there to greet me when I pulled in. It was just awesome. But, you know, it was, I don't know what, there's obviously things I should have been doing or paying attention to, warning signs or something, but I wasn't. Um, I'd gotten, let's see, what was it? St. Patrick's Day weekend. I was down in Savannah, Georgia, and got a DWI on Hunter Army Air Base. And even with that, I didn't think anything of, awful about it. I didn't think that I had a problem. Yeah. I just, I just figured, one of those things, you get caught drunk driving. Okay, no big deal. They slapped me on the wrist and they let me go. And, that's the way I took it. It was no big deal. And I didn't even consider that I might need to take a closer look at what I was doing, how much I was drinking or how frequently or anything. It just didn't seem to be a problem. I performed well at work and didn't see any problems. Yeah. Yeah, quite a lot. Yeah, most of us that hung out together, we all drank together, either at bars or somebody's apartment or house. We did a lot of partying. I remember one time the commanding general of Fort Bragg during 82nd Airborne Week, he was standing up and had like 82nd Airborne Division lined up behind him out there in parade formation, and he's addressing the audience in front of him in the bleachers, and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the most physically fit alcoholics in the world." And, he probably wasn't far off the mark there. I would hazard to guess that probably 70 to 80% of those people out there, those soldiers out there, had a drinking problem, and most of them probably didn't even realize it. It was, yeah, a little bit of that, but more it was an accepted way, a rite of passage. If you couldn't go out, drink and hang with the other guys, then, you weren't, the hard charging soldier. You weren't, man enough to be in the unit or something. It was almost like a rite of passage. You were expected to party. Two of them, I was stationed in Korea for a couple of years, and I got over there, I was 19 years old. There was no drinking age. And, yeah, I stayed drunk for 2 years solid. And I blacked out twice over there. And both times I woke up, come to the next day, and people would tell me I was at this bar, or that bar, or here, there, doing this or that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't remember any of that. Um, uh, they would just tell me that they see me in this bar or that bar. Well, one time somebody said I climbed up on a pool table and went to sleep in a bar, or passed out, I guess. But other than that, I didn't ever do anything crazy or, just I didn't wild out or anything. I mean, I wasn't a violent drunk. I didn't. If I was at a bar and there was one time that happened over in Korea, there was a big fight broke out in the bar, and it was kind of like everybody just joined in just to blow off steam and have fun. But it was nothing serious. It wasn't violence for violence sake. It was just blowing off steam and having fun. If that makes sense to anybody. Yeah, I don't know because it is so common nowadays, and there's got to be just for as many incidents that take place, as many of these tragedies that happen, I can only imagine that there's a separate story to each one of them. And I, you know, I've looked at my own situation, and when I hear or see something happen, mass shootings or, whatever like that, I try to imagine what the person might have been doing, what they might have been thinking, what their agenda might have been. And most of the time I'm as lost as the rest of society out there because not being able to remember what I was thinking or doing at the time it doesn't help me to put myself in their place any more than it does anybody else out there. Seems to me crazy, you know? And I look at it, I'm like, what are these people thinking, you know? And maybe some of them aren't. Maybe, like I said, maybe they have an agenda. Maybe they want to, this is the only way they feel like somebody can hear them and listen to them. And it's you know, that's a shame because they're hurting themselves and other people just to get their voice out there. I don't think so either. All right, Bill Clinton President Clinton had just passed the don't tell or don't ask, don't tell policy in the military. And I didn't know anybody that was happy with that decision. All right, we all felt that it was kind of a black mark on our name and or on our image, and the power's getting ready to flick out here again, I think. But we were very, very not happy with that. And so what I heard in the trial, things that I was making, statements that I would make, I was showing you Clinton, Robert the faggots, letting gay as my military, and you know, all this garbage else spewing out there. I think that that's where that came from at that moment. No, I've never. If I knew any homosexuals in the military, I didn't know they were homosexual. There obviously there probably had to be some, and I just wasn't aware of it. It wasn't on a radar like that. Too wrapped up in myself, to be honest. But when we were interjected without a voice, not we wanted to do this by our commander in chief. We were happy. Yeah, they actually there were some guys that went and had bumper stickers made up, and it had the circle with a line through it, and had two male like bathroom figures, one bent over, one standing behind him, and then it said "Just say no." And we started putting them on our vehicles there at Fort Bragg, and they came down with an order that we had to take those bumper stickers off because it was in contradiction to our commander in chief's orders. And so we weren't happy about that either. Well, where's our freedom of expression? Where's our freedom of speech if we can't voice our opinion about something like this? But that's what it was. And in fairness, I've never seen that movie. I've never had an opportunity to view it. None of the things that I've ever appeared in have I ever had a chance to look at. So that week, it was a payday week. It was a payday week. So we had inspections that we had to stand, and we had guys. We had a trip planned for our. Well, it was a battery, but basically a company, our company. But in the artillery unit, it's called a battery instead of a company. Our battery was going to the beach on Friday. So basically, what we were doing that week was just basically getting ready for the weekend. Just normal duties, you know, working on the vehicles, servicing vehicles, and again, I was a mechanic. I had three guys that worked for me, and good soldiers. And I'm trying to remember nothing really out of the normal of what we normally did, except for that we were planning that we rented a couple trailway buses and we're going to taking the whole battery down to the beach for the day on Friday. And if you elected not to go on the beach trip, which I think everybody in the battery did except for me, I missed it. But if you didn't go to the beach trip, you were supposed to stand Class A inspections that Friday, and then also participate in parachute jumps they had scheduled for that Friday for the rest of the battalion. My fiance and her friends, one of her friends from school, she'd go to nursing school. They went up to Maryland for a week-long country music festival. She had taken her kids, the two kids, to her sister's house to look after her while she was gone, and I was home alone. So Thursday, I went out partying with some guys after work. Got extremely drunk that night. Slept at the barracks. And by the time that I woke up, they said they tried to wake everybody up, said somebody come down the hallway and beat on the doors. Obviously, I was probably passed out, didn't hear anything, but I missed the trip to the beach. And I decided, you know what? I'm gonna blow off the Class A inspection and I'm gonna blow off the jump too. I'm going back to my fiance's place. That's where I'm gonna crash for the day. That was Friday morning. I ran a few errands, some things I needed to do, bills I needed to take care of. Rented some movies and went to the house and not, aside from sleeping a good part of the time, I'm eating and drinking. That's about it. So on the day before this, on Thursday, okay. All right, went to work, normal in the morning, went PT formation and went to work down at the shop and everything. And that afternoon, I remember that I drove to the, I can't remember what the name of it is, but I went and bought, I purchased the 2 kegs of beer, was putting a keg of beer on each Trailway bus. Again, the drinking mentality, right? I put 2 kegs of, I went and got to pick up 2 kegs of beer for the trip the next day. Brought them back and let's see, I hung around the barracks for a while. Trying to remember. I hung around the barracks for a while. I'm pretty sure I went back to my fiance's place and then, golly, that's a long time ago. I'm trying to remember what I did do that day. I rented 3 videos. The Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood. Sometimes they come back by not Stephen King, what's his name? I can't remember the director's name of that one. And then a porno flick. And went to jewelry store and paid on a bill that I had there. Stopped over at a friend's mine house or apartment to see how she was doing. Her husband was at school, I think. So I stopped over there to check on her, and then I went. Maybe I checked on her first, then went to the mall. Either way, went to the house. There was some lumber that I had purchased that I needed to take back, so I took that back to the lumber company and got a refund. And then I was at home after that. Talked to my fiance a couple times on the phone. She was telling me about what was going on up there at the music festival. And again, I was sitting there watching movies and eating and started drinking, I guess, probably about 2 or 3 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock, I guess. Started really drinking. I had a fifth of Wild Turkey 101 and about a 12-pack of Coors Light. Proceeded to get drunk. Yeah, normally I wasn't by myself like that. Normally I was around other people. I didn't have anything else to do there at the house, so I started watching movies and getting drunk.
That's not real.
We're LLP.
Okay. The last thing that I remember that night, I got up and I'd been watching the movie Unforgiven, and I had peeled the label off my whiskey bottle and cut the plastic off the cork. So my whiskey bottle looked like the one that character in the movie was drinking out of. So I'm drinking out of the bottle when he drank, and doing shots and chasing it with beer in between. And I remember, didn't remember seeing the end of the movie. I've since seen it. All right, but I didn't remember seeing the end of the movie. I know the movie went off because I got up and changed movies into VCR and put, they said the tape that was in the VCR was sometimes they come back. And I put that tape in, and I remember sitting down on the couch and picking up the remote control. And that's the last conscious memory I have of that night. Well, it's the only memory I have of that night after that. Okay. I woke up and I was in a hospital and I was handcuffed to the railing. I had 2 police officers on the left and a nurse on my right. And my immediate thought was that I had wrecked my truck. The only thing I could think of is that went out driving drunk and wrecked my truck, and I was hoping I hadn't hurt anybody. Um, I asked the handcuff was cutting in my wrist, and I went to ask the nurse if he would have him remove the handcuff, and I realized my jaw was broke. I could see bandages on my legs and arm, and I didn't know. When I realized my jaw was broke, I figured it was a pretty bad accident, and so I asked her to get them to take the cuffs off. She looked at the police. They looked at her. They looked at me. She looked at me. She looked at them. We went round and round for a minute there, and she's like, "Well, he's not going anywhere." So they took the handcuff off. Then I turned and I looked at her and I said, "I need someone as clearly as I could." My jaw was totally messed up. The side of my mouth was just shattered. And as clearly as I could, I told her that I needed someone to go to my fiance's house and feed her kitten and take back the movies that I'd rented so I didn't get a late fee. Well, she looked at me like I was just slap crazy. And she said, "Do what?" And so as clearly as I could, I enunciated as clearly as I could. Same thing. I need someone to take the movies back so I don't get a late fee and go feed her kitten. And she looked at me. She said, "Don't you realize what you've done?" I was like, "No, what happened? What am I doing here?" She said, "You really don't know." I said, "No, what happened?" She said, "Hold on a minute." She said, "Hold on." And she turned on the TV in the ICU room. And when she turned back around, I'm looking at her like she's nuts now. And she told me, she said, just watch. Just wait a minute, just watch. And it wasn't 5 minutes later, there was a special new bulletin, and then they had my driver's license picture up there talking about Fort Bragg Army Sergeant went into Luigi Restaurant, killed 4 people and shot numerous others. And I'm looking at this, and they're showing footage outside all these, emergency response vehicles out there. And I'm looking at this, and I'm going, "This can't be real. I'm having a nightmare. I'm going to wake back up on the couch where I last remember being because this is not happening. This cannot be real. All right, there's no way in hell that." And it's almost 32 years later, and I still haven't woke up on that couch. One It's been one hell of an experience from that point on because nothing in my life has ever been the same. Nothing in those people's lives has been the same. Like even in that community, I know that my actions affected a lot of people that night. And no, sir. No, I've wanted to over the years many times. I've thought about trying to go through victims advocacy and reach out to some of these people, but at the same time, I know I cause those people a hell of a lot of pain in their lives, and if they've been able to get past it somehow, the last thing that I want to do is just barge in and reopen those wounds. I don't want to cause them any more pain. And, I would, yeah, there's only saying I'm sorry just doesn't cover it. I mean, how do you apologize for killing somebody's family or shooting somebody? How do you apologize for that? There's no way. The words are insufficient, and there's there's nothing I can do to change it as much as I would love to. There's nothing that I can do to change that. I live with that every day. Had while the jury was getting ready to go out and deliberate between life and death. My lawyer told me the day before, he said, "Look," and he said, "the judge is going to give you an opportunity to speak to the jury tomorrow." He said, "What I want you to do is go back and write your thoughts down and let me look at them the next day before you say anything." I was like, "Well, all right." Well, I went back to my cell that night and I wrote a couple pages on a legal pad. But when I started writing, I realized I didn't have anything to say to the jury. This was my opportunity to speak to those people, those families and victims. And so when I showed my lawyer the letter the next day, or what I'd written the next day, he's like, "Don't change a thing." He said, "Just read it." He said, "Don't change anything, man." He said, "I couldn't have scripted it better." He said, "That is wonderful." And so I got up and I thanked the judge and I thanked the jury and I told them, appreciate them being there and the time that they've spent and everything, but I need to speak to these people out here. And I turned and I addressed the victims and their families. And again, I just told them how sorry I was, you know, and not do anything to take it back and change it. There's nothing I can do though. And, you know, I begged them for forgiveness. And at that time, I thought forgiveness was about absolving me of the responsibility for what I've done. I was naive. I was ignorant. I was, I've since learned that I want them to forgive me even more because it's about them getting rid of any anger, resentment that they have towards me, getting that out of their heart. So I'm no longer, the thoughts of me are no longer poisoning their, you know, causing them further harm. And, I can't in any way, shape or form absolve myself of the responsibility as much as I would love to. I'm stuck with it for the rest of my life, be it in here, out there, wherever. There's not a day goes by that I don't. It's impossible not to. It's impossible not to, man. That's, you know, that's what I was told. And I'll tell you, it's like this. When I was sitting there listening to these people describe my actions, it was, you know how when you read a book and you build that imagery in your mind of what the characters are